Fiction and reality. New stories, new ideas. Little Beth Entertainment.
Welcome to episode 104 of The Rocketry Show at TheRocketryShow.com. And this is a workshop episode, and we're joined by Toby Vanderbeek. Lots of great things to talk about. Stick around. The Rocketry Show will start right after this shout out to our patrons. The Rocketry Show would like to thank the following patrons for their support: Todd West, Matt Tudor, Les Rayburn, Steven Spencer, Bill Cook, Jason Cook, Gary Rosenfield, Greg Ziegler, Toby Vanderbeek, Ken Blade, Eric Hamilton, John Beans, Scott Holla, Guy Wadsworth, Phil P., Tom Brum, Michael Moore, Stephen Ray, Amanda Ho, Steve Sainer, Mark, RailButtons.com, and Todd West. If you wish to show your support and become a patron of The Rocketry Show, just visit us at support.TheRocketryShow.com.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.
Welcome to The Rocketry Show.
All right, lift off and the clock has started. Yes, sir. Reading loud and clear.
A podcast that is all about advanced and high-power rocketry. Amateur-built rockets, starting at mid-power to higher-power versions. This program is hosted by the team who loves the smell of burning rocket propellant in the morning. Here are CG, Gene, and model rocket guy, Jesse Yu.
Welcome to episode 104 of The Rocketry Show at TheRocketryShow.com. I'm CG.
I'm Gene.
And I'm Jesse Yu, model rocket guy.
Alrighty. And we're here on the program, a workshop episode as promised. And our very special guest this time around, and he'll be hanging out, we'll be talking rockets together, is Toby Vanderbeek. Welcome to the show, Toby.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So we're going to have a lot of fun talking. A lot of you know Toby from all the discussions on various discussion boards and stuff. But Jesse knows you personally.
Well, we haven't actually got to shake hands and meet yet, but I talk to you, 2 or 3, 4, 7 times a week. So we
yeah, quite a bit. It's keeping me busy.
Would say we have a decent rapport, and I like to bother him all the time. So thanks for being on the show, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. Keeps things interesting.
So the format we have on the workshop is this actually the new format for the workshop episode, where we've been inviting a fellow rocketeer onto the show and hang out with us, and we'll discuss what we're all working on. And the whole idea here is to bring in somebody different with different projects they're working on, and to keep things interesting. And people seem to have liked it when we had our friend Andrew on with us last time around.
Mm-hmm.
So,
oh yeah.
So now,
great guy.
Toby is the second guest on our new format here on the show.
Yeah. So Toby, just so everybody knows, Toby and I do talk quite a bit on different messenger platforms. Facebook, I think, is the mountain we usually go to. And I hit up Toby with tons of questions, and it got to the point, it's like, you know what, do you want to just get on the show? We want to talk over some stuff. And let me go ahead and start off by giving you guys some insight on some of the stuff I'm doing. I'm at a point, guys, where I'm going to start designing my own rocket kits, and I have no idea where to really start doing stuff like that. So that's why I go to Toby, and I go to a few of our other friends that we all know. And, of course, Jason and Dave from Locke. I go to Scott a lot, and I go to Mike Fisher a lot. And, we just kind of run things off each other, and I'm trying to get an idea for the background. Now, a lot of things come to mind when you start doing this stuff, and some of them are, how are you going to cut fins? How are you going to measure centering rings?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Toby, I know you can help with this. Jim, I know you can help with this. So let me start from the top here. One of the things that I did recently, I'm going to say probably I started, a while back, was Executioner. And I upscaled a 2.6-inch Executioner BT80 size from Estes, and I wound up making a 4-inch version. Unfortunately, the thing nosedived. I did some bad things with my ejection charge. I didn't put enough BP in there. So, after that experience, learning BP calculators and what is actually necessary, and you know what, guys, just like Andrew Kleinhens was saying on the episode that we had with him, you got to do your ejection tests. Well, I never did that. If I would have done that with this rocket, I would still have it today. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So I'll admit it. But, one of the most difficult things that I wound up doing with this rocket was trying to figure out how to upscale from a BT-80 size thin cardboard Estes kit to a thicker tube, 4-inch lock size tube, maybe. Mm-hmm. So, Toby, help me out here, man. How do you do upscales? I understand that you have like every version size tube for a White Wolf, which seems to be your favorite go-to rocket.
It is, man.
Let's talk about that, man. Yeah.
Sure. The White Wolf from AMW, they've got a few different sizes, and I think I've got them all, and I've got a bunch more in between. I had to fill in all the sizes. That's a big split fin rocket. It just whistles like crazy. I think everybody loves
awesome.
whistling rockets.
Yes.
Yep. So what I do is essentially just copy what I can from what I know. Essentially, you got to start with a clone of what you have, and get that into a sim program, and then I use both RockSim and OpenRocket, and they both have their strengths. The first step is just get the whole thing in. Whatever you've got, or you can find a sim file, you can make your own, and then you scale it. It's that simple in OpenRocket. You just hit scales everything, and then you go back in, you tweak the little details. For example, you find a nose cone that actually is available. Modify it to that motor tube size, right? Make it what you want. Set the fin tabs and export files. I mean, it takes time, but it's not that difficult.
I want to make a side tangent here, or go down the side track if this were a railroad. Which software did you start off with? Did you start off with OpenRocket or RockSim?
RockSim. I think I'm very, very proficient with RockSim. Mm-hmm. OpenRocket works. Like I said, it has its strengths. I'll definitely use that for scaling. But then I'll save files in RockSim and transfer back over because I'm just much more familiar with it. I'll get the paid version. I think it's a great program. We use both, right? One's free and one's not, but they both have their strengths.
The reason I was asking is I get a lot of questions from listeners who are using OpenRocket and they try to go to RockSim and they get lost. And I used OpenRocket eons ago, and I kind of forgot how most of the details. But when they ask me for suggestions, I never know really what to say. But since you use both of them, what would you suggest from somebody who is using OpenRocket and they want to move to RockSim?
I think it just comes with time. It's sort of like maybe the old PC or Mac debate. You're probably better on the one that you've used for longer. And so I started on RockSim. I mean, I couldn't get my way around OpenRocket. Mm-hmm. I'm just much better with RockSim. So I don't know. No one needs to transfer. I certainly think it's worth investing in RockSim program. For me, and going to the laser we'll talk about later, RockSim is so good at exporting files for laser cutting.
Oh, okay.
The OBJ files?
SVG, actually, the scalable vector graphics.
Vectors, yeah.
Yeah, they're amazing. They go right into my laser.
I've exported those for the Northeast Ohio version of Lock Precision before they moved.
Right.
And I would dump out the SVG files and shoot them over the Berry. And so Aries flies using G10 fiberglass versions of Nesru's plywood fins from SVG's fins patterns I sent to Barry over at Long.
And that's how you did it.
Yeah.
That's how you did it. All right.
I'm a fan of both, actually, because for my TARC team, pretty much OpenRocket, but some of the guys who wanted to do a few more things, and I showed them, and I have a school, like 5 licenses on the education thing for RockSim. So I'm like, all right, you can use one of my licenses. And they both, you're right, Toby, they both have strengths and weaknesses, but they both do get the job done. I'm definitely more of a RockSim guy, but I like OpenRocket for doing quick stuff. So that's kind of how I do it.
And it's free. There's no excuse not to use a sim program, right?
Right.
Absolutely not. Yeah, I mean, it helps immensely when you're doing design. Like I've got a thing for archers, so I have I counted them up before the show. I've got 7 different scales of the North Coast Rocketry Archer, and all the way to my level 3, which is an 8-inch, 12-foot high, beast of a rocket that I love. So that was all done in RockSim. Every single one of those alliterations. And some of it, though, for like with the Archer, it's got strakes on it. I put them in, but I ended up kind of scaling them down a little bit as I got larger, just because the larger rocket, it was just better for me to have a better, stronger airframe. And I didn't want to break any strakes because they kind of stick out a lot on the original Archer. So I kind of scaled them down a little bit, but that's the only thing I did.
Okay.
If you don't want them to break, just use fiberglass strakes, Gene. Come on.
I know, but at my level 3, I was going old school. I had to go with like 12 ply birch plywood, do the old school route.
Tabletop wood, like your dining room table. Come on, your rockets are big enough there.
Well, you just put a bigger motor in it if it gets
motors,
heavy.
Yeah.
It does like the M4500.
I'm going to be transparent with you guys. I've recently started dabbling with OpenRocket because a lot of the people in my club that I work with, George Barnes mainly, he's a pretty good expert at OpenRocket, and he's told me, use this first and then start learning RockSim. But Toby, it sounds like he kind of went the other way around. You got more proficient at RockSim, but you can navigate around OpenRocket. I'm thrust curve. Like I remember my Android tablet out to the field, I would just use thrust curve.
Love
and now,
thrust
for
curve.
more, I know, but for all intents and purposes, the database is still needing some work. It's not quite active yet, so we can't go and do a quick sim based on weight, et cetera, et cetera. But man, I used to be able to dial into some thrust curve, and you know what? I learned OpenRocket pretty proficiently, and having to force myself to do it for the level 3, I'm pretty excited to put other sims in there and use it, and things do come up a lot easier. And now that you guys just said the SVG file for fins can be exported from RockSim, yeah, that's the next goal. That's going to be something I work on. So
good. And if you do 3D printing, you can do the object files that I mentioned. Those you can get those parts out with an OBJ file, it'll go directly into Kira, which is my 3D printing software. I have an Ender 3 just like everybody else, and that works pretty well. So. It's a good, cheap 3D printer that actually works really, really well.
Wow. Okay. So, Toby, do you 3D print too? Or what are you working on usually?
No, I have a 3D printer. I'm not really proficient at it. I think I'm not using it enough. But, man, honestly, it's just so frustrating when this thing's running for a couple hours and 5 minutes to go, something goes wrong.
Yeah. Indeed.
So yeah, I've got one. I don't use it much. The laser is my main tool here.
Yeah, for we're doing fins and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. That's the cool part. So, we also have I have access to a CAD table saw thing. So it's pretty cool. So I can get to use that for the big stuff at school. But the little laser cutter is good for doing plywood.
So now that we're bringing it up,
Yep.
So what is your favorite laser cutter?
I have a Glowforge.
Oh.
And so it's kind of like the opposite of the 3D printer in that, 3D printer comes in like a kit and you got to put it together and then you got to mess around a bunch to get things level and right and straight. The Glowforge is out of the box. It works. I was cutting within minutes. You plug it in, you connect to Wi-Fi, you put a piece of wood, and you say go. It's just complete opposite. So for me, just the ease of use of the Glowforge is just the reason I use it every day. No messing around with it; it just runs.
What did you cut first, Toby? I'm interested.
Well, the cool thing with the Glowforge is that it comes with some files that you can run right away, kind of artsy stuff. But as far as rockets, my very first clone, I copied an old NCR Big Brute, a 4-inch rocket, and 3 fins. That was the first thing I used the laser for rocketry.
So how'd you get the design for that? Did you pull it out of RockSim, or how did you talk about that real quick? How'd you do the flow?
Yeah, I did get that out of RockSim, but I believe I also got files. Well, I'm not sure I got files. I got graphics directly from the designer.
From Matt,
but exactly, from Matt Steele. Yeah, in fact, I contacted him and I said, "Hey, I want to clone this. I love this big 4-inch, short, fat rocket. I want to make the fins for it. I probably found a sim file, but he said, Here's some help. And he even had graphics for it. He had old graphics that I bought from him. So I've got the originals
Awesome.
on my Big Brute. Yeah.
Nice.
Too cool.
And of course, I had to go
Out
up
of
to
the
38
box.
millimeter just to make sure it had enough power
Of course.
to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wish I would have gone 38 millimeter on all my level 1 rockets. I went 29. And well, that's great. But, now it's like, I should have gone 38. There's a lot more cooler motors than 38 millimeter.
Yeah, you cap out at the I-205 for the 29s.
Not only that, but there's some cool long burns in 38 millimeter too. So.
Oh, yeah.
True.
This is what I tell people when they're working on a kit, a scratch design, or, they talk to me about, hey, can you make that in, 29 instead of 38? Well, there's really no penalty in going up a size, right? I mean, you can always go down, but for example, the Big Brute, if it has a 29 to start with, you'll never use a 24 in it, right? It's a 4-inch rocket.
Right.
You got to move it. So you go to 38 and you adapt down to 29, and you've just doubled your range of motors.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. Smart.
Would you have a rule of thumb where you just automatically, what you're going to fly in it, but then you take it a step up? Because I kind of do that with some of my stuff.
Always go bigger. I mean,
Okay. Yeah.
I know it's kind of silly, but I like to destroy rockets just to see what they can take.
I like
end
your
up,
style.
putting a too big of a motor in it. We got a big field, or it's safe, but I want to push them. So I've sent a cardboard rocket well over Mach without issue. We'll talk about that at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah, that was your level 2, right? Wasn't it a Tomahawk, or what was it, Toby? Actually,
yeah, it's a lock.
Talk about
a lock Sandhawk.
Sandhawk.
Oh, yeah.
I use,
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, just on Facebook a couple of days ago popped up. I got my L1 3 years ago, and it was like a half painted rocket, right? So I just finished it, launched it on an H123. And I was like, well, I wonder what this can take. So, I worked my way up. 168, 242, just kept getting bigger. For my L2, I used a single use J270, and then I went with a J500 something, and then I thought, you know what, let's just see what happens with a J25R, and it hit. Right.
Awesome.
It was at the point the rocket had a dozen flights. I was like, I'm okay if it survives or not, because I want to see what happens. And so I put this big motor in it. It was a beautiful, perfect flight. It landed 100 yards from the pad.
Wow.
And the altimeter said it hit Mach 1.33, 1,026 miles an hour. And it's amazing lock rocket. 1/4-inch fins. They're sturdy.
I hear you. I know there's like some people say, oh, you got a fiberglass, you got to do this, you got to do this, and like, not necessarily. No, I mean, you get what you put into it, but if you do a good job with it, then you can, and you put it together well, it'll hold up.
Yeah, I think.
Well, that's the
what
thing
kind of
too.
glue?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was going to say that, right? It really comes down to, there's the debate, what glue. It is all about the technique.
Yes.
I posted a video a while back about internal fillets, and I gotta make a new video, because you can use school glue. If you do it right, it's going to work.
I agree. I know. There's some old schoolers that are level 3, and they built it completely with wood glue.
Yeah,
It works.
I've become like total wood glue kind of person myself. It's like Nesru has a bunch of epoxy in it, and that kind of added to the weight. But Aries, it's epoxy for the fiberglass fins, but everything else is wood glue. And the other rocket, Comanche's all wood glue. It works fine. The thing survives a lot. Are we
descending into a glue discussion? Oh no!
Oh yeah, we're in trouble now.
Yeah,
there's one point I would say about using the wood glue is that I would literally build any paper, cardboard and wood rocket with wood glue, no matter what, because I know I don't care how fast it's going, I don't care how big it is, it's stronger than the materials.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And my favorite one on Tight Bond 3, it stays just a little bit flexible. So
exactly.
Yeah,
it matches the cardboard and the wood, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the same sort of flexible.
Yes.
And, we have a lot of advocates who are old-timer rocketeers and, experienced rocketeers, maybe I should say that instead. But I remember Mike Fisher had a discussion, several different times And I've read that he's launched some of the. Let me start over. Mike Fisher has launched some of the binder design rockets that he makes, and he builds them with wood glue and puts K motors in those things, gets them back with no issues, and just light paint, just to spray over, not like filling spirals and primer and everything, just a quick once over, makes them good from the 10 feet away rule. And then he goes out and he flies them at his clubs. And there's been, rockets that he's done really lightweight that way that have gotten, past 10K and, come back, survive just fine. And then, Mike obviously has done some launches where, his stuff that he does is so powerful that it blows holes in the ground and ruins launch pads. So yeah, you're right, man. It's all about the way that you construct it, and there's a lot of people that will testify to that. And just recently today, I was having a discussion with a couple of guys, and we talked about do you use fin pockets on cardboard? And I guess we can't really say, no, you can't do that, because, it will work. It'll adhere. But I personally feel that there's a different way to do that. Build a motor outside the fin can. You don't necessarily need fin tabs and center ring tabs. You can still do it when, it's not cut that way. And, I think you just kind of need to try it and see if you like it. And then if you want to go back to the other way that you build stuff, to do that too. So you guys are right. It's all about the mannerisms in which you build the stuff. So the fact that you have a testimony like that on that rocket, how many flights do you think you have on that Sandhawk, Toby?
I'd say probably a dozen. And, I just figured that might be its last flight. And I don't think I've flown it again. I won't hesitate to, but, it can't do anymore. I could put a J510 in it, but I don't think it's going to go any faster or higher.
I see. And CG, your rockets, man, how many flights do Nezru and the brother have? What's the other rockets?
Oh, Ares. Ares right now is sitting at 2 flights. I haven't flown it in a couple of years, but it's coming up. That's part of what the upcoming flight computer test will involve, Ares. Nezru, let's see off the top of my head. I may have to get back to you later. I have to get into my doc. Get my log and see where it's not as many as you think. It's an old rocket, but I don't fly the level 1 rockets as often as I did the little ones. Like,
I think I know 3 right off the bat that I saw.
Yeah, it's more than 3. It's probably more like 12 or so.
All right.
If that many. Now the baby versions of the rockets, those things, one of them is I think up to 24, 25 or so. The little 24 millimeter BT-61s.
Sure. Man.
They clock a lot of hours, a lot of flights. Hey, real quick, we were talking about the motor sizes and stuff, Toby. What's your favorite propellant? And what, like the color style and the type? Do you like fast? Do you like slow burn?
I love white smoke because I like to see where my rockets are going. I know it's just kind of showy, this sort of middle of the road for velocity, but I love this billowing white smoke.
So are you into the white lightning stuff or just the?
Yeah, I'm all Aerotech.
Cool.
Maybe you should have this at the end of the show. Just a quick, 20 questions.
Yeah.
Aerotech or CTI? So,
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah, we could totally do that.
We got.
I started with an H123W for my cert, so I think that was probably what locked it in.
Yeah, like the
True.
Either Aerotech or CTI. I always like the each company's style of the white lightning. That's sort of like the government rockets. Although the CTI has this really nice dirty gray smoke that looks more like the like the government.
I don't
stuff.
know. My favorite motor of all time has to be the CTI N5800.
Well,
that thing is a
That was
beast.
fast.
Oh man,
You like those?
I want to get another one.
You like those rockets? Don't blink. You're gonna miss it.
Yeah, well, it's fun. Everybody has their own style.
Yep.
I'm a Blue Thunder kind of guy.
There you go. So what we're going to do real quick is we're going to take a break and we're going to come back with Toby Vanderbeek on this workshop episode. Lots and lots to talk about. And so we'll take a break right now. We'll be right back after this. You're listening to The Rocketry Show at TheRocketryShow.com. Lock Precision Rocketry manufactures a full line of high-quality precision fit components to meet your building, repairing, and customizing needs. Lock Precision believes in making rocket kits as light as possible while maintaining the strength required to fly with commercially available motors. Lock Precision offers a wide range of rocket kits from the 1-inch diameter Lock 1 series to high-power rockets reaching 7.6 inches in diameter. When you visit LockPrecision.com, be sure to check out their Performance Series kits featuring such designs as the Black Brand 10, the Caliper ISP, and the 3.1-inch diameter Iris rocket. All of Lock Precision's performance kits comes with everything you need, including pre-slotted airframes, high-grade precision-cut plywood fins and components, as well as ripstop nylon parachutes, rugged shock cords, polypropylene nose cone, and instructions. The name Lock Precision has been synonymous with mid and high-power rocketry for over 30 years. Check out LockPrecision.com to find out why. LockPrecision.com. Fly higher. Fly lock. It's time for eRockets.biz. eRockets.biz is your home for unique model rocket kits as well as the world's largest selection of rocket parts from Semrock. They've been in business since 2009. eRockets.biz has a wide selection of your favorite kits as well as their own versions of popular out-of-production models many of you have come to enjoy over the years. And Jesse, what did you find from eRockets?
So I went to the eRockets page to start looking at my weekly shop around list, and I was very, very happy to see that one of the rockets that they're portraying right now on their front page is the Lock Precision deployer. So let me give you a little insight on this deployer.
Okay.
Somebody that you all know really, really well did the flash for this deployer, which means that we did the picture of how it's painted and how it looks. So this one is not a 3D render or anything of the nature. This is an actual rocket built by somebody that you guys all know. And I have a little bit of insight on this deployer. So the deployer is a 3.1-inch diameter rocket. It has a separate booster, separate payload bay. This particular rocket is called a deployer because it does come with a lock, lightweight version of the 3-inch diameter avionics bay. So it does actually come with that right away. You don't have to buy a separate part. So the retail price on this rocket, they have it on sale right now at eRockets right now for $94.99. The rocket is nearly 4 feet tall. It's a 29 millimeter motor mount. So, you know, how you guys always like to talk about, H's and early I's that fit within the 29 millimeter spectrum. This would be a good rocket for people to learn on. And when I first got mine, I used it and I flew it a bunch of times to learn how to do dual deploy. So it's a good training dual deploy rocket. It is a cardboard rocket, because it's lock. Now, this one here particularly says that it has a 38 millimeter motor mount. Mine was 29, but if this comes with 38, then that's just a bonus for everybody. It does come with a drogue and a main parachute, so it comes with everything that you need to fly. It does come with 1010 rail buttons. The only thing this doesn't have is a motor retainer, but you can add on your favorite one that you like at that point. But if you guys want to learn how to do dual deploy, that's why Lock made this rocket. And I got to tell you, it brought me up to where I needed to be from learning dual deploy. I got 17 dual deploy flights right now. 6 of them are probably done on this rocket alone.
Wow.
So
nice.
Yeah. Pick it up, guys. It's a great price right now at eRockets.biz.
Very cool.
Thank you, eRockets.
Yeah. There are also plenty of other rocketry items to choose from, such as educational rocket kits and supplies, air rockets, water rockets, and so much more. eRockets.biz certainly has enough kits and supplies to keep you busy in your workshop for a long time to come. Need parts for your own custom builds? No problem. eRockets.biz also supplies the Semrock line of airframes, nose cones, centering rings, motor mounts, and so much more. eRockets has more rocket parts available than anyone else on Earth. Check out eRockets.biz today to learn more. eRockets.biz. If rocketry scares you, buy a train set.
Going up in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, liftoff.
From Little Beth Media, a new podcast on model rocketry with build techniques, model rocket history, interviews with industry insiders, stuff for beginners and longtime model rocketeers, everything from low to mid-power. The Model Rocket Show with me, the Rocket Noob, at TheRocketryShow.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
The Rocketry Show would like to thank the following patrons for their support. JohnRocket.com, Jason Rotney, Sean Falkingham, Joe S., Paul Olivieri, Sam Feinberg, Michael Aylward, Brian Schenkenberger, E. Hutnell, John Thompson, Mark McBride, Doug Wade, C. McCauley, Carl Hunting, the Piedmont Student Launch Team, Steve S., Chris Irving, Dave Simmons, SBRFusionRocket.biz, John Kusher, Christopher Short, Kelsey Black, Brian Renneker, and Jason Rodney. If you wish to show your support and become a patron of The Rocketry Show, just visit us at support.TheRocketryShow.com. Welcome back to The Rocketry Show at TheRocketryShow.com workshop episode with our very special guest, Toby Vanderbeek, our second fellow Rocketeer guest on the workshop series. And we'll be doing this as a regular thing because it's a lot of fun and you enjoyed it. And so did we. So we're glad that all worked out between us and all of you listening. So during the break, Toby brought up in our conversations, and I had to say, oh, hold on to it. You're about to bring up more propellant talk.
Yeah, last year we had a launch out in Black Rock Desert, and with the club there, and I think it was the club president. He pulled out a rocket for a night launch, and he's mixing his own propellant, and I believe the name was Unicorn Farts. And it was a really slow propellant. Took quite a while to get the rocket off the pad, but absolutely spectacular, like pink and purple flames and smoke with sparks. Wow. I think one of the manufacturers has to get a hold of this propellant mix because it is fantastic.
Huh. So
that could be cool.
Was this all at the same time or did it switch?
Yeah, it was all at the same time. I mean, he's got his, mix, whatever. I don't make motors. I don't know what he had in it, but it was just spectacular, especially at night, which is like pink and purple coming out on sparks. It was just one of the best motors I've ever seen. I mean, I love Metal Storm, but this stuff with colors and sparks was incredible.
That's wild. I'm
intrigued because I just started dipping my toe into mixing, and you can do different effects by just stacking your grains differently with different types of propellant. But you really got to know what you're doing when you get to that point, because you could overpressurize your case and then have a nice little blowout. But that sounds really cool. He must have like 3 or 4 different types of grains in that thing.
And that fairy,
I don't know what he had.
And that fairy
awesome.
Unicorn touch.
And I do have a video
to
of
go
it.
with it.
We just need to get this to one of the manufacturers so they can copy it because they'll sell a ton.
I like the thought.
Yeah.
I'm usually fast burn, but if it has that many effects, that could be cool.
Oh, yeah.
I like it slow.
I think one of my favorite motors is, the Loki cocktail, which turns out into like an amethyst purple. And the one that I flew last was a L840. And I talk about this all the time, but I'll talk about it again. 2 blue grains and 2 red grains. And then I want to say that the blue grains get lit first. And I could be wrong. I don't remember because, it's been like 2 years since I flew that particular motor. But, Scott had a particular way of making sure that you stacked them correctly. He even hand labeled each one of the grains so that you put them into the liner correctly when you built the motor. So, there's explicit instructions for, those cocktail motors out there that Loki makes. But boy, the color of that was just so fierce. It looked like Mace Windu's lightsaber, guys. Like just, and the flame was so long. Like that rocket was 9 feet tall, and I swear the flame was at least 7 feet tall or 7 feet long. It was amazing. And cool. I got a really high res picture of that one of the guys out of Kansas City took for me, and that his name was Scott, but he's not like a rocketry person. I think he was just there, but Scott Wright, he took a really great photo for me, and I post that all over the place. But boy, every time I look at it, it's like, wow, I want to do that again. So I got to say, those Loki cocktail motors for me, that's the one I like. And then it goes to White Lightning, and then Fast Jacks.
Yep. Fast Jacks are fun. What about you, CG? Because everybody knows I'm Blue Thunder, and everybody else is talking about. What's your flavor of choice?
I like the White Lightning stuff. So if it's Aerotech White Lightning or the CTI White propellant, and if I can get away with doing a long burn and move slow, I will opt to that. Nezuru is because of its weight on an H180. or even a CTI propellant, H135, it will tend to move pretty slow anyway.
Right.
On those, but Aries hops off the pad a little bit faster than that now because it's lighter. But yeah, that's kind of like my favorite. I like if I can get a rocket to move slow and white smoke propellant on there and white flame, that makes my day.
Makes everybody's day, doesn't it?
Yes.
Oh, when you see a space shuttle launch, even like some of the older videos, it's that billow white smoke that I think gives you those goosebumps. So I totally see the intrigue with the white. And then
having seen them personally, I will tell you that
true.
In person, it looks like a gigantic Aerotech white lightning motor going, and the flame is so bright, it's like staring at the sun. So it's like you just take what you see in the Aerotech white lightning and just magnify it by several orders of magnitude, and that's the shuttle launch. With those solid rocket boosters going, it's pretty wild.
Weren't those classified as like a Class 3S motor or something like that? I don't know if that's true or not.
Somebody did do that, and I forgot what classification it was.
They went all the way up to triple Z, I think, on some of that stuff.
Yeah, I do remember the letter Z in there somewhere, but I couldn't tell you the details.
Oh, man.
Jeez. Right.
All right.
Yeah, that's pretty wild stuff. So basically, the closest you can get to it in model rocket form or high-power rocket form is if you were to launch a white lightning propellant rocket at dusk. Then you kind of get close to that effect of the shuttle, but it's not quite there, but it's closer to that.
Yeah. That's I'm still playing around with the thrust vectoring, but when I get it dialed in, I do want to use a white lightning with that, like some of the new G8 or whatever, those smaller motors that just got reissued. Yeah. So because I want that smoke for that. I still have to dial in because I'm still skyrating with the thing, but hey, it's fun. But it would be cool to see that kind of that takeoff that you're talking about with a finless rocket that's just doing its vectoring going up.
Have you seen Joe's video when he gave tips on how to tune that like on a dining room table or whatever?
Yep, how to do the string test and stuff. Yeah, I've done it a couple of times. It's not a high priority project for me. It's more of a when I get around to it and I feel like launching a rocket without fins kind of thing. So
we've had several people ask, speaking of Joe Barnard, we had several people ask when did we record that episode because Joe was taking a break from things. And that was originally recorded in December. So I think that was just before he took a little break.
Yeah.
If the timing works out, because I wasn't aware of that until somebody mentioned it. I was like, oh, he took a break. And so I went digging back through his stuff, and it seems like he took that break just after I think we recorded with him.
Yeah, and then he kind of came back just to do his Narcon presentation, and
he's back now.
He's still, yeah.
No, he's officially back now.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's talking high power now. We're talking level 3. So we'll see.
Level 3 plans, Toby?
I'm just so busy. I mean, it's definitely going to happen at some point, but I'm just busy with life. There's a lot going on. I'm the president of the Rocket Club, so I feel like I should be, L3, but it's not necessary. We have a couple of good L3s in our club, so I'll get there someday. Just no hurry, and it'll most likely be a white wolf. So
most likely,
that's what I was at. That's what I was leading up to. Geez, you know me so well, man.
Yeah, and probably on a long burn M650W or something.
It's time to get a look at that. Start pricing that sonotube out, huh? Go old school.
Actually, I have a prototype 7.5-inch white wolf from Locke, so that's most likely going to be the one. I just got to see if the fins will flutter. They're huge. Split fins. It'll whistle for sure.
It'll whistle. Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I'll go ahead and announce it. But Gloria and Robert from A&W are officially selling a 7.5-inch white wolf right now, guys. So if you're interested, go check that out.
Ooh, nice.
Go check that out. But Toby, yeah, you got the prototype, baby. I wanted to talk about it. Let me rewind a little bit, guys. We went off on a huge tangent, which I love. I mean, it's just you can't have rocketry talk without going on tangents. But I kind of want to understand, like, you had mentioned to me a while back, and here just before we started recording too, that you have almost every size White Wolf in every tube size. And they don't make kits for those, right? You created those and you did the changes with RockSim. I mean, can you talk about that, man? Like, because I want to know how you do this with every size tube.
Sure. So AMW sells, I think, at least a 5.5, obviously now the 7.5. And then there's a much smaller one that's like a 1-point-something inch. But
the 38 mil, right? With the
38. That's what you're right. That's what it is, and that's a really sturdy rocket. So I've flown one of those a bunch of times. But the reason I bought my lasers, because I had a coworker who had the Glowforge, and I was thinking, like, how do I make these fins out of plywood? I got some tools at home. I could probably make it, but I just want them perfect. And so, he said, "Hey, I'll cut it for you." So I took the time to to lay it out in the program. Essentially, I just copied the 38 millimeter kit into RockSim, because there's no file available. It's not an obscure rocket. It's just not as popular as some of these others.
Sure.
So I just put everything into RockSim. I scaled it up. RockSim can scale, no problem. I went to, I think, like a 3-inch body tube, and then exported the fin file. fins. And centering rings, and he cut it for me. And I said, "Okay, I need one of these lasers." It was
cool,
pretty easy, and built the rocket. And since then, I've converted, a bunch of other kits. Hey, I want to replace the fins with these. So I do the same thing. I just design it in RockSim. Scale whatever I have to scale, and then export parts and cut them.
And make
we'll
it sound so easy.
I know.
He
it
does
is.
make it sound so easy.
It's not hard. It's time consuming, right? And so somebody's got to put in the work. If it's my rocket, I'll put in the work and I'll do it.
So it's no secret that, Vander Burn-rocketry turned out to be pretty big for you. So congratulations on that. And you have made a lot of parts for people. And, a lot of people from my club, dude, really, really appreciate the work that you did. And, the little F-44 goblins that you helped us make those fins for, they're tremendous. So now we know some of your secrets on how you do that. And talk to me about more rockets that you have changed your
I will give away all the
for.
Secrets. I'll give away every single secret. I mean, it's a small community. I think we're all helping each other out.
Yeah.
So on that one, the Goblin, one of the members, maybe it's you, came to me and said,
Kenneth
"Hey,
Copus.
That's
my buddy Kenneth. My buddy Kenneth, yeah.
He said, "Hey, we're stripping the fins off our goblins." I said, "Well, what are you doing? This little Estes kit." "Oh, we're stuffing these, F-44s in." "Well, of course you're gonna tear the fins off a balsa fins off a little cardboard too if you do that." And so, so I either got a fin from him. I probably have the kit here, right? We all have hundreds of kits lying around. Mm-hmm. So I think I found the kit or got a fin from someone, and then just. I put it into either CAD or most likely into RockSim, and then added fin tabs because he wanted fin tabs to go to the body, to the motor tube. And then I actually recently added the centering rings. Nobody asked me for centering rings for this entire time you guys have been launching these. And so just the other day, I was like, I'll get the DIMs. And so I've been throwing these centering rings into little open pockets on the wood that I'm cutting because there's always, space.
The extra, right.
Exactly right. So just today I changed the website to say centering rings are now included because it's not really costing me, anything just to get those in there too. So Ken was like, "Hey, we want to, buy some fins from you." I was like, "Well, it's a bit of work, if you want to do the work and send me the file, I'll cut it for you guys." But he wanted me to do the work, and it's sometimes it's worth it, right? If I'm going to do a bunch of fins, and he said we need half a dozen or something. Okay, it's worth it. But since then, I think 50 people have purchased them. So sometimes some things blow up, right?
So you have a bunch of goblins flying around on F-44s out in Colorado. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, I talked about it on an episode before, and it's hilarious to me. I didn't get to see the launch that they first did this on, but in our Colorado chat that we have, that's all these guys talk about, and they're like starting to like create badges for which of these actually last their flights, and some of these guys are like, you know what, I'm going to use the balsa fins and I'm going to tip glass it with 4 ounce, and like these guys get out of control, and then no, I'm going to use Toby's fins, and I'm going to just use the regular cardboard. And you're right, Toby. Like they didn't ask for centering rings because they were thinking that the fiber rings, not fiber, they're the cardboard rings on those. Yeah, and they're just like, oh, I'll just reinforce it with some epoxy. So these guys are nuts, man, and it's funny stuff.
It works, and again, it's like, let's see what happens, right? Send it.
And, cool. Most of the mishaps that these guys have had with these rockets are, the ejection for an F-44 is still pretty powerful, right? So their nose cone goes flying with the rubber band shock cord, and some of these guys forget to use the Emma-Kite's string instead, and, the armid or Kevlar.
They keep the elastic.
They keep the rubber band.
That's so funny. I mean, how much, it's got to have nose weight, right? I mean,
yeah, but I mean, Clay you can get at Walgreens for all intents and purposes, but these guys are like, putting in a lead shot with epoxy and doing all that stuff too, and putting it in a cup of cold water so the exothermic doesn't mold the plastic. And then
tell me they're plastic parachutes. Tell me they are plastic parachutes.
No, some of these guys are using the streamers because they got Toby fins, man. So they don't need to worry about the thing landing hard, So,
true.
You guys got to come out here. They are having too much fun with this stuff. So, Toby, you're a wild man, dude. You started some weird stuff around here. So,
I'm an enabler.
So,
here, see what you can do with this.
Yeah,
that's right.
I love it.
Hey, listen, people come to me. They're like, you offer a 38 millimeter upgrade for the Big Daddy, but I want 54. Like,
cool.
Well, it's your rocket, so let's do it.
Why not? Speaking of materials here, I'll dive into the mailbag that we can all kind of share on our first question here. This one's from Jonah, and he's wondering if any of us have ever used Always Ready Rocketry's Bluetooth 2.0. If we have, how was it to work with? And would you recommend them to someone who's never built a scratch-built rocket before? Now, I use Bluetooth as a motor mount for both Nezuru and Comanche.
Okay.
So that's where I've used it. It's kind of neat that, and I can just cut it on the bandsaw and everything. It's like kind of bizarre. And I believe that now the 2.0 version has that been out for a while?
I'm not sure myself.
Yeah, I wasn't sure on that myself because I'm not sure if I'm using the 2.0 version of it or the original version of Bluetooth because I
wasn't
bought that
the older version supposed to be like a little bit. It could crack in cold weather.
Yeah, I remember
like
hearing about that. Yeah, I remember hearing something about that.
And the older version was also a little thinner, like almost like 2 layers thinner.
Okay,
so,
right.
I
have not seen the new stuff.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a great question because I haven't used Bluetooth in a long time. I've seen it, but I've never put it in any of my rockets.
I'm trying to remember.
It would be really good for motor mounts. That's a good idea, CG, because sometimes the Aeropack retainers won't fit on the thicker motor mount tubes that you can get. So Bluetooth would be a good replacement for that. So that's a good idea, actually.
Yeah, and Aeropack does have a retainer for the Bluetooth. Because that's what I use on all of the rockets, really. I don't remember what I put in Aries. It may be Bluetooth. It's like 29 millimeter Bluetooth. Yeah, I'm not going to run up there now, but I'll have to look at some point. How about you, Toby? Any experience with the Bluetooth?
I have no experience with Bluetooth, man. I'm kind of just a cardboard rocket kind of guy. It's just a little bit of probably, not enough time and maybe some impatience. I just kind of want to build them. The White Wolf is a coat of white paint. So, it's pretty easy.
True. Yeah.
But yeah, no Bluetooth. I mean, I've read about it before. It's made from like tank ammunition supplies or something fun. So yeah, not yet. I've only done a few fiberglass rockets.
It is. It's its origins.
I'd rather just, build some cardboard and destroy it and build another.
Well, if any of you...
It doesn't sound like you destroyed much, though, Toby. It doesn't.
Oh,
sound
I
like
got
you...
some stories.
Well, we'll get to those in a second then.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
If any of you have ever used Bluetooth for your builds and you've got some advice or some insight, you can use SpeakPipe if you want. Leave us a message, or you can write us an email, mailbag@TheRocketryShow.com. Get some answers for Jonah out there from the rocketry community. We'll be happy to relay it on out. So
yeah, send in all your suggestions, guys.
Yes.
We love to listen to this stuff and read it and talk about it.
Exactly. So give us one of your destruction stories there, Toby.
Yeah.
Blow it up.
Well, so most recently out there in the desert, Black Rock Desert last year, I got one of the early Laser Lock 163 models. That's the re-release of
oh yeah.
And I had never done any fiberglassing before. I know Jesse's kind of a pro now, but this is a really nice simple kit with the fiberglass included that just goes tip to tip on the fins, and so it was a really good experience for me to try it out. But in my usual fashion, I decided to put a giant motor in it. And so, I flew it like first flight on maybe like a G80 or something. And then I went with something much bigger, I think an I, and it had a hard landing. It didn't look too damaged. But then I thought, let's just see if we can get it to go really fast. The problem is with a 29 millimeter motor mount, the 38, you overfly it really easily. And that one has no AvBay in it. So I'm like, let's just put a J350 in this thing, cardboard, like just the fin can is glass.
That's a 1.63 inch diameter tube, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And, my motto is just send it. So I did, and the thing, it disappeared off the pad. And it just, I know it got up pretty high because the parts rained down over a pretty good area. But I actually think that it folded somewhere up near the nose cone. I think probably where I drilled some holes to vent. I got parts of it back, but I am so 100% confident that the fin can is out there in the desert completely intact. So if anybody wants like an easy, beginner fiberglass fin can, it's a great one. Just don't push it too hard because it can take so much, but that's one I destroyed recently.
Would you get it up to
right?
Mach 2?
Well, I know
so
the sim was like Mach 1.5 or Mach 2 or something, ridiculous. And I was like, let's see what happens.
Cool.
So we found out what happens.
That's good.
On that note, let's take another break here. We'll come back with more with Toby Vanderbeek on this workshop episode of The Rocketry Show, TheRocketryShow.com. We'll be right back. North Coast Rocketry, one of the first high-power rocketry kit companies ever, takes advantage of over 30 years of high-power experience by a world-class rocketeer. You can look to North Coast Rocketry to expand your high-power rocket fleet. In addition to great kits, North Coast Rocketry also stocks lots of must-have items and accessories for every rocketeer's workshop. Find out more about these kits and other great products today. Go to northcoastrocketry.com. And while you're there, don't forget to get their latest catalog, northcoastrocketry.com. Advanced rockets that are easy to build, fun to fly, and look great on display. It's time for Serious Rocketry. Serious Rocketry, since 1998, providing the Rocketeer with great kits, motors, supplies, and more. They have lots of products in their ever-growing web store with fast shipping, wide selection, and courteous service. You can also check out the amazing and popular Serious Rocketry kits that harken back to the days of fun-to-build detailed kits that are more than just 3 fins and a nose cone. Gene, you've been snooping around. What did you find this time around?
Oh, there's always so much to look at. But, there's one that I have gone back to that I have it and I love it. And it's a great flyer. It is 4-inch diameter Mad Cow Frenzy. Now, check this thing out. It's split fin. So if you like that whistle when it goes up, this one certainly does. I can attest to that because that's what mine does. It's over 6.5 feet tall, 4-inch diameter. It's a long and lean, high-power flyer. So you could put, typically I fly mine on a K550, which is gets it thousands of feet up. They're probably about 3,000, 4,000 feet. But you could always go a little smaller if you wanted to. The I-284 is also good for this, but it's got a high-power rocket with 1/4-inch plywood laser-cut fins and rings in a split-fin design. So you got 6 fins to work with. Yeah, it comes with Delrin rail buttons. It's dual-deploy capable. Mine certainly is, because I don't want to walk so far. Pre-slotted airframe. Comes with your tubular nylon shock cord. Now, the only thing it doesn't come with is the parachute and the chute protector. And Madcow recommends a 50-inch nylon parachute to go with it, and possibly a 12 by 12-inch chute protector. But it is the Madcow Frenzy. This is a great level 1 or just a fun sport model to fly. It's big, it's lean, it's a great flyer, and it whistles. And right now, it's available on Sirius Rocketry for $131.95. So you get all that for that price. It's a great flyer, and it'll be a great addition to your fleet.
All righty. And the great thing about it is when you place that order, Sirius Rocketry's website features real-time stock tracking. That means it lets you order with confidence from their online store, no having to call or write to see if something is really in stock. And when you're ready to fly, Sirius Rocketry has motors and hardware in stock from Estes through Aerotech High Power, as well as popular electronics from Jolly Logic and more. Be sure to ask them about their club specials while you're at it. Visit their websites today at siriusrocketry.biz and .com. Sirius Rocketry, for the serious Rocketeer.
Hey, all you rocket geeks out there. Do you like doing in-flight videos of your flights? And do you ever use those keychain cams and unfortunately sometimes only get videos of your thumb? Hey, this is Gene from The Rocketry Show, and that used to happen to me. I used to use those old keychain cams only to get nothing very good quality. But I found a solution to that, and it's Insane Rockets. It's an app that's available on the Google Play Store for Nexus 5X and higher. Now get this, it does 4K video. But not only that, it'll upload it automatically to the cloud and provide you real-time telemetry while tracking your rocket through Google Earth. It is amazing. Available on the Google Play Store, Insane Rockets app. It's crazy. No, wait. It's insane.
The Rocketry Show would like to thank the following patrons for their support: Timothy Mock, Conway Stevens, Jeff Curtis, Phil Bridges, Scott Masters, Roy Tyson, Rob Hoagie, R. Smith, Gary Dow, Jay Paulman, Don J, G. Schmierden, M. Erisman, Pierre Marlou, Jeff Curtis, Brian Lapato, Philip Calvin, Jay Bryan, Casey Anderson, Terry Dancer, Mark Essenwine, Jim Wilson, Jason O'Scally, and Scott Masters. If you wish to show your support and become a patron of The Rocketry Show, just visit us at support.TheRocketryShow.com. All right, we're having fun talking about some of Toby's adventures here on The Rocketry Show at TheRocketryShow.com. It's a workshop episode with Toby Vanderbeek, our fellow Rocketeer, hanging out with us. And so you have another fun story.
I do. At our club launch, I'm with Lunar here in California. So I actually took my own kit, the Cherokee. It's the 3-inch upscale. And flew that, my first flight on my Cherokee. I think it probably went with a pretty easy H motor. Just again, building it properly. I was confident it could handle an H motor on the first launch. So we sent it up and it did not eject. And I probably screwed up the ejection charge. I tend to get a little too much grease. The ejection area, and the nose cone didn't eject, but the rocket did not nose in and just come straight back down. The fins on that thing, they're pretty large, and the rocket was floating horizontally back down to Earth, and it was just like this slow, easy float coming down. And I was like, oh, it's going to be no damage. We'll get it back, and it was just like
streamerless design.
Yeah, right. But then about 100 yards up, it kind of started slipping back and forth, and then it nosed in. So like 100 yards up, it finally went nose down, and it came down and just hit the nose. But the whole fin can totally perfect, intact. And the cool thing is that rocket is just upscale from the Cherokee. And there's the older Cherokee D and the Cherokee E, and one's blue, one's red, and one's longer. Well, I built it longer, and so after the crash, I just cut off 10 inches, and now I got the shorter version.
That's the way to do it.
That's right.
Oh man, keep it simple. Keep it simple.
Yes.
It's fun.
Oh, and that after that crash, I got a really nice picture of it, and that gave me the idea to start the Lawn Dart Club on Facebook. I call it the Lawn Dart Lounge.
Oh, I got to find that group.
Lawn Dart Lounge on Facebook. Yeah, just, you got lawn darts, they happen. I'm also I started the Cato Club, which is the Cato Rock.
I like the Cato Club.
I'm part of that.
Yeah, exactly.
They do definitely make you feel better about yourself because we've all had those little accidents.
It happens. Yep.
Yeah.
Just get over it, build another, fly again.
Although
you're right.
Although it's hard.
My favorite Cato.
It's hard for me to get over the Catos where somebody built a beautiful rocket and they put all this time in it. You go, oh yeah, that's going to look great flying. And then Cato happens and it's just you sit there with a tear in your eye for that person. It's like, oh.
I have some fun with an Estes Leviathan Pro Series. I stretched it and made it a dual deploy, and I love flying that thing on the I-205. I mean, you get 4,000 feet. It's basically built stock, right? So the one time I decided to put a G in it at a low power launch, and it was a single use G motor, one of the old Estes ones, the Aerotech branded ones, and it Catoed, and the side of it just blew out at the pad and started this massive fire. It was actually really cool. I have the debris left over. The fin can, 3 of the fins are good. The other one's kind of missing in this pile of burnt ashes, but at least I know that I built it well because those other fins are still solid. So
nice.
And I put some Russian stickers on it just because I always figure, if it's, let's do like the Russians, it's going to blow up eventually anyway. So let's and one of them melted and it's just like red, this black star that used to be a red star.
Oh, wow.
I almost was tempted to pee on it to put it out the fire, but there were kids around. I kept that one to myself.
Fun. We're having too much fun. Oh, that's good stuff, guys.
Yes.
You're up, CG. What'd you destroy?
The only Cato I had so far, and it happened to do with Comanche, and that was a blow-by thing. So basically the delay grain was kind of fitting kind of loose, but I figured, okay, well, I guess we'll go with it. And so you had a blow-by that got to the black powder. And so the rocket got maybe to the middle of the launch rod before the black powder went off. So deployed the parachute, and the motor was like fully up to pressure. So it was trying to fly, but the parachute says, nah, you're not going anywhere. So the thing just kind of flopped around until it, until it was done.
At least your electronics were okay, right?
Yeah, the electronic. Well, I think that rough ride did screw up part of they could crack the component on the Enticore, and I didn't realize that the Enticore seemed to be okay, but then it was like didn't work right on another flight, and so I pulled it out and put a stratologger in. But I just recently, since I've been building my flight computers, I've got the gear to do whatever repairs that I could on surface mount stuff, which that is. Mm-hmm. It's an older Enticore. It goes back several years, but I found what the problem was and fixed it, and it seems to be fine now. But yeah, that was like the only one I had, and Comanche I've always wondered about because it was like the first build. My second level 1 rocket, the first one after Nezru. And Nezru was overbuilt like nobody's business. and after a while, it's like, I really don't need to make, reinforce the thing for lateral forces and all that. Most of the forces are going to be, up and down on the thing. So
sure.
So Comanche was like that's where it was like I didn't really put that much into, lateral forces on the thing. So when it was doing all that, I was thinking, oh, that thing is a goner. So only a couple sections actually were, messed up on there. So I just, since it's all modular on my rockets, I just built new ones and put it back together and cleaned the soot out of everything because
yeah. Yep.
And it flew just fine. It had its battle scars on it, and I just recently rebuilt most of it. So it's whenever I get around to flying again, it'll be nice and new. Because what ended up happening is that and a couple of rough landings put little kinks in the airframe tubing in the same side of the rocket. So one day I went to fly it and I picked up, I was like, wait a minute, this thing is like kind of bowed like a bow and arrow a little bit. So it's like, yeah, I'm not going to fly it like that. I'm just going to have to rebuild these other sections. So eventually I did. So far that's the worst Kato I think I've had.
So Kato, so I told you about my executioner that I messed up the BP charge and it nosedive. So Toby, inadvertently, you actually helped me with something. Let me back into the story a little bit.
I'm sorry.
Without me ever telling you about this, you've actually helped me in the future. So let me explain here. So my level 1 rocket was a Lock 4, and this is the one that was done in the Berry days. So it had the full length tube. It's not like the Lock 4s you buy now. It's got the 2 separate pieces for the body tube. So I built that and nosedived it. I had a G80, one of the older ones, the Aerotech ones that had the little paper cap. And apparently there was no BP under that paper cap. The reason I know that is because it nosedived badly. So I go back and fix, I had the tragedy of the Lock 4. So cut the tube down by the motor can, added another centering ring and half a coupler and repaired it. I was super proud of the repair. The repair looked nicer than the original paint job. And that's the one that's on the locks. That's the one that's on the lock site right now. So if you go look up Lock 4, that turquoise one that you see, that's my rebuild of my level 1 Lock 4. So this time I used, I think it was a G74. And yeah, I did a boo-boo. I'll go ahead and be transparent and I'll talk about it. I had an igniter for an H motor because I could not find the igniter that I had that came with that G motor. So if you notice the H motor igniters that you get from Aerotech, they have, bigger ends, because obviously your hole's wider because most of those are going to be like 38 millimeter or, or 29 mil with the larger hole. And a G74 has the little slot that goes into a hobby case, right? The 2940 by 120. So, I was able to get the igniter in there. So I was like, okay, this will be fine, right? Because I was able to push it in and, I didn't think it would fit. And I was like, oh, that's great. That works good. So I took it out to the launch pad and I got ready to fly it. 1 second in, you saw the flame go and, you always get that sigh of relief when you see the smoke coming out the bottom, right? Well,
yeah.
It overpressurized. Big fireball out of the top. So it was my own caused Kato. So those cases that, people make, for Aerotech and the Aerotech case themselves for the hobby case, those threads are really, really, really strong because it blew the forward enclosure off. I had to get pliers to take out the threads from the forward enclosure from that casing. So however they have that set up to stay on there, good job, Aerotech. Your design is pretty good. But the case is fine. Just had to replace the forward closure, and I've been able to use that case on my other G loads ever since then. I learned a valuable mistake, or I learned a valuable lesson from that mistake. So make sure you guys have the right igniters. And CG, you were talking about this a while back, and I'm sorry to keep going on tangents, but if you don't have the right igniters, if you still have the original ones, the ones that you have to tape on each side, what are those called again?
Oh,
I have like 30 of those.
Copperheads, yeah.
Copperheads. Yes. Those work great. Just use them, guys.
They do. Tape on one side, tape on the other side, go.
Yeah. And ever since I've been using those on my hobby cases, like I've had good launches every single time. And then I can just save those other igniters that come with those motors for other instances where I might need them. Those actually work good in the little D10 motors. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, you can still use the Copperheads. They still work well. So
yeah, I don't have any left now. I used them all up.
I think I have one.
Might have to send you some. But so Toby, here's how you help me out. Ever since my mishap with my executioner, and ever since my learning this valuable lesson with my G80, with my G74, I have went to pretty much full altimeter deployment. And, Terry Dancer has done a really cool thing with his Pac-Man eBay, and you have done a really cool thing designing a nose cone electronics bay. Talk about that.
Yeah, so I actually this came also out of the NCR Big Brute. Since I put the 38 millimeter motor bound in, I wanted to put some bigger motors, but I just feel like they're not as reliable for timing in a short fat rocket. It's harder to set the delay. We do our sims, we get close, but
That makes sense.
I came up with the idea of putting an ab bay into the nose cone. The weight's forward. There's really not enough room anywhere else for an ab bay. I didn't want to make it longer. And so I cut off the base of the nose cone, epoxy in a ring with a couple pieces of hardware, and then build another ring with the eye bolt on it and a little sled. So I use it for single deploy at apogee. I can use a shoot release if I want to have, dual. But it's just a really simple way to get that perfect, apogee deployment every time. So then I offered that on the Megadir Red Max nose cone too.
Oh, dude, I tell you, I've used it a few times, Toby, and it's awesome. So, Jim, what does that remind you of? What does that remind you of?
The lock nose cone?
Yeah,
the removable
nose weight system.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then they use that to put their trackers in because those Marco Polo trackers. Didn't you say that you put the what's the transmitter called again? Tag?
Yeah. The Marco Polo will fit in that, but also I use the featherweight ones and the
that's
which
a flight
also,
sketch, right?
Yeah, and then there's
nice.
There's another one that I use, an Entercore aim base, which is my big fancy one that does all kinds of stuff that I don't fly too often. But and it's it's got the super 10-inch antenna, yada fancy. So I mean that nose weight system is good. Now I have yet to fly it. I just built it because I'm helping out CG with his altimeter stuff, and we're planning on using that. And putting his device into the nose for tracking to do some testing on at higher Mach speeds.
Yeah, and while we brought that up, I figured I'd talk about where I'm at with that real quick here. There's a couple of revisions that the flight computer's gone through since the last flight. I think I mentioned in a previous show that I discovered that there's a power supply issue that was lurking in the design, even though the last few flights went just fine as they were. But they certainly wouldn't have been if I had the full code load running on that microprocessor. So I'm glad I found that. So I came up with a new power supply design, which seemed to work. But I also made a few changes to try to make it a little bit. There was a really expensive part on there. It's a buck converter in there, and I figured I'll just go with some standard voltage regulators. So I went with the smaller ones to drop the voltage down. And everything was working fine with them, and they worked great on the little baby altimeter on the little baby altimeter I was working on. But when I did a test using the full 3-cell lipos, like if I were to put that in Nesru, which Nesru was just running 12 volts, and so I figured, I should make sure it works on that. So it's powered up on that, and the main regulator just went poof, let the magic smoke out, and it took out all kinds of things on the board. I'm going, what the heck was going on here? And here it turns out that there's, just to make sure I don't have a brownout happening on like the transmitter and on the GPS board and all that, there's a capacitor that keeps the voltage running through the device should a brownout happen during, if I have a short on one of the initiators for one of the events. And the thing with capacitors, when you first power them up, they're when they're not charged, they appear to be dead shorts to whatever, to the power supply. So it's the same thing if you've got one of those fancy stereo systems and you flip this power on the stereo system and all the lights in the room dim down for a second. Same idea. Right. So what was happening is that those regulators, while they were fine for the job, but they would not be able to handle the dead load of those filter caps on the other end of the circuit. So I had to use a different regulator. So it's I think I mentioned it was block 6C, but I think it's really 6E because it was like, I think D was the design that everything was working until I put 12 volts on it. So now I have a new one that should be able to handle it just fine. That's 6E. So I'll be sending that board off in a little bit to have it made up and build up another test and
nice.
Hold my breath and do another major power up. But but if that goes, then that'll be the flight computer that will be ready to do the first full up everything event with the rocket, meaning apogee and main deployment, as well as running all the other electronics that run that.
You thinking spring for your tests?
Yeah, it'll be sometime in this spring, at least for
I got an
Ares.
L1000 with your name on it.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I'll start off with Ares.
Just level 2 on that.
I'll start off with Ares on that, but then what I want to do is then, if it all works out great, then I'll build up one for Gene to test with me, where it'll just won't do any real firing of any events. The whole idea is for it to ride in the rocket, and I want to test out the mock lockout, which is that code is not done yet. So once I get it going, then I'll start working on that code. But I don't have a really easy way to test that except for the real thing. So just
makes sense.
Make it ride along in the rocket, and I'll record the data coming down on the stream for down the telemetry link, and see if it does any false triggers. So that'll tell me if
That's
I got
a
it
good
right.
idea.
It's all way over my head, man. I don't even know anything about programming.
That's the hardcore geeky stuff.
And hardware. But the thing I love is that in rocketry, there's room for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want
There
to
is.
do your own electronics and
Truly.
code, I don't know what's going on there. Or you want to, do a scratch build, or you want to do a static model. I mean, we're all doing rocketry, right?
Mhm.
But we all have our
absolutely.
own niche, and it's awesome that we can all do it together.
That's what I love about it.
I don't even know what mine is anymore. I mean, I used to be all about painting and design and, almost like noob, trying to make the stuff look like the picture. Like, because honestly, what sold me on rockets, honestly, guys, was the way that the design looked on the package. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my God, I have to have every rocket. So that kind of went to the wayside. And then all of a sudden, my name model rocket guy no longer applies because everything I have is big. And Terry Dancer the other day, he's like, Jesse, do you even build anything this small? Because we were talking like a 2.6 inch sled for an av bay. And I'm like, well, yeah, I have a lot of stuff like that, actually. He's like, no, you can't have one. I'm like, geez. Nope. So, yeah. But no, it's all the way around. And, with CG, I get intrigued by your stuff. And I always give you kudos about this all the time because the stuff that you make it's very intricate. And, we're talking to Chris from Egg Timer and we're, talking about like Missile Works and stuff like that. And you are touching that world.
Yes.
On an avenue that nobody else really does. So I get really intrigued listening to this. And I'm going to go read your blog page again because it's literally just it's a good read. So he's got links to that on TheRocketryShow.com, guys.
Yeah, the one thing I get a lot of questions from people that are wondering, so when are you going to start selling those things? And
right.
And I was thinking that through for the last several months, okay, what is that going to mean? And the thing that's spooky about it would be that if I start doing that, that'll probably end up consuming all my time. Maybe I'll probably never get to do anything else because I'll be supporting that because it's pretty sophisticated. And the other realization is that the only part of that whole system that looks complete and looks like a commercial product, mainly because it kind of has to be for sturdiness, is the rocket half of it. The telemetry link is like a complete and total science experiment. Like the outside of the box, the outside of the box looks cool, but you open it up, it's like, proto board stuck in there. And, it's like none of that stuff has been distilled into a purpose design. And it's just kind of, that's like a whole nother, maybe a year and a half or so just to kind of translate all that into a purpose built, PC board and then test it and, spend all this time designing one thing and think you got it until you get the circuit boards back and you power it up and either it doesn't do something or maybe some smoke comes out because you missed a tray somewhere. I mean, I've showed you guys the circuit board just for the rocket side of it, and it's like a gajillion traces in it. And I end up spending like all night just following every single trace on each side of the board till my eyes are like burning just to make sure I didn't miss something.
Oh yeah, he does. He loves every minute of it.
I like it when it's done and it works. It's like, yes, I did it. Yeah. And the hardware.
It's like the ultimate satisfied feeling.
Well, the hardware part is like kind of the grueling part. Where I have fun is writing the code, even when the code isn't working right. It's like some people like challenging crossword puzzles. And for me, the code part is sort of like that. And,
absolutely, yeah.
dig in and figure out what's going on. But the hardware part I can't stand because every time there's a mistake, that's more money.
True. Yeah. I feel you there.
So
plus, like your receiver unit isn't a handheld unit. I mean, is something that it's a base station, like an actual base station.
Yes, there's an actual base station that receives stuff. Although I did make some hand carried variations that show you some limited data from it.
Right.
So, and another thing where I took, I think I adapted nicely into this Android app that, you can send raw NEMA data from the GPS on the rocket to that app on your phone by Bluetooth. And it should allow you to show you where the rocket is and let you walk up to it. So when I get the next test, I want to see if I actually got it working right, because I'm kind of hijacking what's already there. And it took a while to kind of reverse engineer. And I think I reverse engineered how it worked, but I had to change my code a little bit on the rocket because I'm sending my formatted GPS data where I can just manually type it in. But this system wants raw NEMA codes, which is a lot of data that doesn't fit into the my existing data stream. So I have to change the code so that it sends what my gear wants to see. And then there's an alternate string that has a different header that has that raw NEMA data on there. I call that NEMA data whenever I talk about it. For the other device to send Bluetooth to the phone. And I got that working okay. So hopefully that's formatted the way that program wants to see. And it's kind of hard to test without, going into a big field and sticking the rocket somewhere and firing up the thing. Oh, take me to it. So.
Wow. I like them big. I make motors.
What's your altimeter of choice, Toby?
I got a pretty good variety. I probably have one of everything. As far as electronics, like I don't know anything about code, but I'm willing to solder, an egg timer. And those are really
nice.
They're great kits.
and easy.
I've built some for people. They're great kits to build.
Yeah, they work great. But I don't know. I probably have one of everything. I like them all. What else you guys got? I mean, what other types?
I go MissileWorks myself just because Jim he's local to me, so I try to support my local people as much as possible.
Nice.
I've been Stratologger myself for day one, but they're getting harder to find.
God, I would love to have one.
Yeah.
I would love to have one.
Yeah, I've been using Stratologger.
I prefer Stratologger. Sure.
Yeah, I've been using those too.
But I did pick up a MissileWorks, the one with the LCD display, the RC2, that has the little plug-in LCD display. I do like it. I fly it in tandem with the Stratologger on one of my 5-inch rockets, and the data's good. It works. It's spot on as far as like when the events happen. So I mean, if and when something happens with Stratologger, I hope it doesn't. But I just wanted to open that door so I have another means to get some altimeters in there.
So I've been getting RRC2s and a couple of extra RRC3s to make sure that every sled that I have has it. Because we talked about this a couple of episodes back. One of the things I don't like to do is move the hardware back and forth.
Same here.
Neither do I.
My 7.5-inch electronics bay I retrofit to include my 5.5-inch sled. So that wound up, I do use all thread. And that wound up me getting some longer all thread to make sure that 15-inch AV bay versus the 12-inch AV bay, has the parts that it needs. And then I had to recut the holes in the bulkheads to make sure that they match up to the 5.5. And, it's just that way I can just use that sled and move it back and forth as I need to. And the 4-inch one, it's kind of the same. But when I got that Scorpion from Mac, it comes with a 3D printed sled. And I'm really looking at this thing and thinking, I might want to retrofit my 4-inch bulkheads to fit this sled, because this thing has extra room because the all thread spacing is wider. And it occurred to me this gives you more room. So I got some things to play with, but my focus right now, guys, is level 3. Once I get that done, then what I'm going to do is start making an outline of the projects that I want to get done first, so that I get that satisfied feel again. 2020 was such a hard year. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. Just checklist. That way, not outline, you're right. But, that way I can start going down and, I want to get this done first. And then it becomes fun again, because right now I think it's sounding like work. So.
Yeah. Well, you're at that point where you had, you're ready to do your L3, but, because of events, things happen and you can't do it. That's got to be frustrating as hell.
I need to do my ejection tests. I don't know why I'm waiting on that. Like I was supposed to do that last weekend, and then my neighbors weren't available. I'm like, oh, I'll wait till they're here, and because they like to sit around and watch when I do that. And it's really fun to they clap afterwards and everything. It's kind of a neighborhood thing, but I'm pretty lucky that way. But I haven't done it yet, and I need to just get that done so that all those boxes for pre-ready are done, and then the week of the flight, I'll build that motor and have it. Just make sure I got all my O-rings and all that stuff, because I understand that you still have to check those packages and make sure you have all your O-rings. The last thing I want is, Friday before my flight to, oh no, I'm missing an O-ring. I can't replace that now. What am I going to do? Oh, you have to wait another month? Oh, okay. Well, that's awesome. Level 2 forever, guys. Level 2 forever. So that's my
a good
dilemma.
place to be. L2 is a great place. There's so many motors. You go from a J up to an L. I mean, that's a wide range of stuff.
Huge. And
I haven't even gotten to L yet. I'm done a couple J's and K's, but I mean, L just feels huge, right? It's a big motor.
I was pretty scared when I did my first L, and I was like, "This thing's really big." I put it in my 5.5-inch Archer, and it went Mach, and I'm like, "Oh, I didn't even know that until I looked at the data." Like, hey, this is a cardboard rocket. Sweet.
That's right.
Toby's got a really good picture of his K550 flight with his White Wolf. It's still one of my favorites. I'm going to print it at some point on one of those things that you can send out to Walgreens and they make you pictures. I'm going to steal his picture. Ooh, nice. I'm going to put it on my wall just because it looks amazing.
Thank you.
So it does. I do love those.
So we have a couple more emails to run through as we wind down on the show here with Toby. So we have one from one of our YouTube listeners. And in case you didn't know, there are occasionally some video things we'll put up on YouTube, but what's starting to happen now is that I have this automated system going. So whenever we publish a show on usual channels for, typical podcasts, whether it's,
right,
iTunes or not Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or whatever
Spotify
it is Spotify, whatever you're using. But it also shoots it out to our YouTube channel, which is just a static picture and you just listen to the show. And there's an audience that's been slowly building up on YouTube, and I have to keep reminding myself to go look, because there'll be people putting comments on there and it's like, there's a comment. Okay. I should respond. So this is one from the Joe Barnard episode here. Some very interesting things. And Joe, if you're listening, this might be kind of cool. So this comes from Winston. And he says about that episode, he goes, there are so many variables which cannot be known in advance. That is amazing and very impressive that he's gotten as far as he has. And he's talking about Joe landing rockets with under motor power. So like the SpaceX boosters returning. He says, motor variability, both in total impulse and thrust curve, is just one of them. So one of those variables. Somewhere I have an old MIT NAR technical report on the possible use of motor weight and X-ray analysis as a method to predetermine the best Estes black powder motors to use in a competitive event. And due to this, they needed to test them on a test stand. And he says that there was up to a 10% variation in D12 impulse motors responses.
Yep.
And that was mainly from one flyer. But the number of motors they tested was very limited, so it couldn't then be considered to be a rare case. And their effort was unsuccessful, by the way, he says. So one of his thoughts is that maybe Joe Barnard can make use of the Kirchner effect, and he says maybe have a servo-controlled tube around the motor as a throttling method. So you bury the motor into the tube more if you want less thrust, or move the motor more towards the outside if you want more thrust. He says maybe that can help out with something.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it comments on our YouTube channel there. I paraphrased parts of it, and he's got links to the Kirchner effect, and I will put that in our show notes if you want to look into the Kirchner effect on your own, which is pretty cool, actually.
Just a thumbnail on that. The Kirchner effect is if the motor is, usually your motor is flush or sticking out of your airframe. And if the motor is more in the, is further into that tube, you lose thrust by a certain amount as you go higher up there, to the point where you could lose a lot of thrust if it's 6 inches deep into that airframe.
And Joe did make reference to that when he was talking about when he was designing that system where you eject the motor and you drop a new one in place for the landing burn. And he was mentioning that he couldn't fire the motor from further up in the tube because you lose most of your thrust due to the Krishnik effect. But this Winston thought of a way that he could probably use that to his advantage to get around some of the motor thrust variability and have the computer monitor that and adjust. So that was pretty cool. And
I got nothing. Wow.
Yeah. So a lot of rocket science going into this stuff, inspired by
straight up rocket science.
Yeah. And then another note here coming in on SpeakPipe, little sad note from a fellow Rocketeer we lost. So let's take a listen to that right now.
The rocketry community lost a really great guy due to COVID over the weekend. His name was Peter Weary. He flew with Cato. He was an amazing, generous man. It's truly missed by a lot of us. He loved lock rockets, loved Sparkies, and was incredibly, incredibly generous and truly cared about the rocketry community. Rest in peace, Peter.
Indeed.
I'm going to be really sad to not go back and forth with Peter. I used to talk to the guy every once in a while on Facebook. Just, he was a member of Lock Mafia because he did build a lot of lock rockets. And, Lock Mafia put a few of his pictures up before. Peter, you're going to be missed, man. Sometimes we'd go back and forth and he'd be all, are you being serious or are you just messing with me? And, it's kind of nice to have those people that you can have those chats with sometimes. And, I'm going to miss it. So, rest in peace, Peter. We'll fly some L's for you to tribute some of those Sparkies, man.
Yeah.
We
are a small community, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, for sure. So thanks, John, for the note. I appreciate it, man.
Yes. So anyway, any other notes before we leave here? Anything we missed out that we want to ask Toby about?
I think we got it.
Yeah, I have one for Jim. Hey, were you talking about something going on with some fins that happened with the team?
Oh, yeah. Interesting thing. My TARC team uses 1/8 inch, standard plywood for their fins. We've used it we had a team for 3 years. I've never had any problems with it. So, same vendor, I just go to the craft store and pick it up. This time around, the plywood actually delaminated on a couple of landings. Like all of the rockets we did about 4 flights that day, and on all 4 rockets the plywood started delaminating, which I've never seen before. I like to use the Baltic birch plywood for my own stuff, just because it's stronger and it's I don't like that soft coarse stuff that I see. But for the TARC, it's never been a problem. Have you guys ever encountered any kind of delaminating on plywood fins? And if you have, what do you do to correct it besides using new fins?
Let's revisit this on a future episode, because one of my club members did send a picture in our Colorado chat this last week where his BBX did have a fin that delaminated while it was sitting on his display.
Oh, really? Okay.
I have no idea why this happened, but we're talking about how we're going to fix that. And one of the things that we suggested is, try to get as much epoxy as you can on the inside, and then, do the board, take 2 pieces of board, compress the fin together with some C-clamps, and then let it dry. Obviously, you want to use a slow cure epoxy. So he's going to try something like that, and then see if he can do that without ruining the paint, because most epoxy will dry clear.
Right.
And then, so he's going to try that. Now, I'll get back to you, Jim, with what he was talking about. But when you mentioned that earlier, I definitely wanted to hear about it because I wanted to tell you about this.
Oh, absolutely.
So I will get back to you. I will get back to you on that.
Yeah, I've not run into that. But the only thing I've run into with my fins are a Nezru, where Nezru is old enough now that the paint has been cracking along the areas where the fins kind of are flexing a little bit.
The joints too, yeah.
Well, just along the areas you expect the fins to kind of flex just a little bit.
Fillets, maybe.
First, further out from the fillets, it's more it's near the airframe of the rocket, but like along the edge. So I noticed some vertical cracks and some of the paint's chipping off on there. But the fin is fine. The fins themselves actually are sanding sealer on those. So so they're fine. It's just the paint was just kind of coming off. And I just kind of I could repaint it, but it's kind of cool.
Battle scars.
It's like a guitar.
Yeah, exactly.
Toby, it's like one of your guitars has got the buckle rash.
That's right. Hey, it's a sign of, good use.
Yes.
I cut a ton of plywood, and I only ever had one customer say that he had a problem with the lamination of the plywood. So, I don't think it's a huge problem. I'm sure it can happen. But I have an easy remedy. You just put in a big motor and send it.
That's exactly what we did.
All right. See, it needs a
you can't
final
fly
flight.
in a contest.
That's
gotta
right. Final
send
flight.
it off in style. Yeah,
that's right.
Oh man.
Oh, it's good.
Well, it's
good
with a single-use motor.
Yes,
oh, absolutely.
yeah,
definitely. You don't want to lose a case.
Yes, prerequisite. So anyway, it's been really fun having you hang out with us, Toby. I like this new format, and I like your suggestions. We need to come up with 10 questions for future shows that we can rapid fire, ask future guests on our workshop episodes. I really like that, so I actually wrote it down.
Yep, we'll have you back for a spot on a future episode, and here's our fire questions with Toby Vanderbeek.
Yes,
yeah, let's do
Great,
it.
Man.
Let's do
a lot of fun.
Sweet.
So yeah, and
thanks a lot, Toby.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
This is so good to have you.
Sure thing. Yeah.
If you like this episode of any other episode of The Rocketry Show, be sure to let friends know about it. We got to get the word out. So a lot of Rocketeers don't know about The Rocketry Show. So just spread the word. Tell a friend. Let them know. TheRocketryShow.com, a podcast. It's about rockets. All about good stuff that you can listen to in your workshops and do that there. Next episode 105, is going to be another fun one. We've got Tim Van Milligan from Apogee Components joining us and talking about what's happening at Apogee. So that's going to be another great fun show for you to check out here on The Rocketry Show.
Super excited. Super excited.
Yes. So anyway, on that note, everybody,
keep your eyes in the skies.
All right. This has been another great episode of The Rocketry Show with Toby Vanderbeek on this one. And we'll see you next time on The Rocketry Show at TheRocketryShow.com.
Have a comment? We'd love to hear it. Send them to mailbag@TheRocketryShow.com. If you enjoyed what you heard, don't forget to check out our sister show, TheModelRocketShow.com. The Model Rocket Show is hosted by the Rocket Noob and is all about low to mid-power rocketry. TheModelRocketShow.com with Daniel, the Rocket Noob. Check it out today. The views and opinions expressed on these programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Little Beth Entertainment or its sponsors.